We have learned all the steps provided by the 8D method. In this lesson we review them and share some advice received from experts who have been using this tool for years. I start with a parenthesis linked to the world of quality systems, the Deming cycle or PDCA cycle, because it will serve to review the phases and their sequence of the 8D method. According to Deming, who is the inventor of this tool, when we have to face any new task or project, the first stage should be planning. At this stage, we should define the objectives, the strategy, and the responsibilities. After this planning phase, we have an operational execution, the do phase. Then, we will have to verify that what we have achieved is consistent with our objectives. This verification phase is called check. If the results are not optimal, you go back, changing the actions or remodeling the starting schedule. When verification provides success, we move on to the last phase of the commissioning, we call act. Deming's wheel is also called the PDCA cycle because it takes its name from the initials of the 4 words plan, do, check, act. What are we going to do now? I'll offer you a game. I'll propose one by one the phases of the 8D method, and for each one, you'll have to tell me if it's related to the do, plan, check, or act phase of the Deming cycle. In the end, we'll check whether the 8D method and Deming cycle has something in common. Let's go then. The first task of the method, create the team. What stage of Deming cycle does it correspond to? Plan, do, check, or act? Plan, that's right. Let's move on to the second one. What do you tell me? Plan, right. Let's go to the third, where we define the containment action. At what stage does it correspond? Perfect. Plan. Task 4, identifying the root cause. What stage does it correspond to? This is also a planning task, so plan. Task 5, implementing the corrective action. What do you tell me, is it still plan phase? No, we're in the do phase. Activity 6, check the effectiveness of the action. What stage does it correspond to? All right, check. Activity 7, let's talk about prevention. At what stage would you associate it? We are in the act phase, just like the recognition of the team's efforts. For step 8, I'll advance the answer. Can I ask you another question? Does the structure of the 8D method resume the PDCA cycle? The right answer is yes, it follows it on time. As I anticipated, I asked several people to share some of the tricks or lessons most important to them on the 8D method. The experience of other experienced and competent people can be very useful, and I will bring you some of their most interesting tips. The first advice, which I had already anticipated at the beginning of the course, is to consider the 8D method as a useful method of problem solving and not trivially as a document to be filled in just because the customer asks for it. A beautiful image that represents the whole thing is the iceberg, the 8D report. The document to be filled is the extremity. The big one is the method that represents the submerged part and the real plus of the method, an excellent problem-solving tool. This brings us to the second tip that I bring you, almost textual: understand well every single point of the model. This means that if we do not know the tools to use, we have to read up, study, and learn how you are doing that you have decided to take this course. Think I've heard about a company that recently worked with automotive customers. After some time, the first complaint arrived combined with the customer's request to handle it with the 8D method. The company, having no specific experience or expertise, decided to fill up the report in some way. How did you think the results were? Brilliant. That's right, no. The customer responded in zero time by saying that he would not accept their proposal for corrective action because it was not sufficiently robust, and that advised the people of the action to participate in 8D courses, and that, as a containment, they would be helped by someone who had sufficient experience and of course expecting responsive responses and actions. Improvising in the business is not a great strategy. The third piece of advice I share is to always address the steps envisaged by the 8D method in team. Sometimes, both for the short time we all have, and for the many things we have to carry on, the temptation is to let one or two people, often of quality, carry on rather than continue with a team-based and multidisciplinary approach. I realize that it is difficult to stop several people at the same time, especially in medium or small companies. At the same time, the best results are obtained when the team participates in the method and not a couple of individuals, albeit competent and with such goodwill. An African proverb says that you go faster on your own, but together you go further. This also applies to the 8D method. The last piece of advice I share is the approach to use during the 8D journey. Reasoning, like a child, without preconceptions or prejudices helps a lot in the analysis, for example in the method of the 5 why. In general, as an approach, focusing on why it happened instead of why I didn't see it is very rewarding. It leads us more quickly to find solutions. I close the course by remembering one important thing: the goal of problem solving is to find solutions and not look for problems or culprits.
We have reached the end of this course. It was a pleasure for me to participate in your growth. Good job and good problem solving.